After the War, From Auschwitz to Ambleside, by Tom Palmer, narrated by Joe Jameson, published by Barrington Stoke. This book is dedicated to the Lake District Holocaust Project for the work that they do to share the story of the Windermere Boys. Forward. A group of young people arrived in the Lake District in the summer of 1945 and stayed for a few months, the last of them leaving in early 1946. Although they only spent a short time in the area, it was a profoundly important experience for them, and they made a big impression on those who met them at the time. In 2005, I became intrigued by references that were made to these youngsters, and when I began to investigate, a truly remarkable story emerged. People I spoke to initially in the immediate area had different opinions as to who these children had been. They were variously described as being part of the Kindertransport, children on holiday from London, German prisoners of war, and in one case they were thought to have been children from Holland escaping famine. All these suggestions turned out to have some basis in fact, but almost all had missed the crucial point. The young people were in fact Jewish child survivors of the Holocaust, and moreover they had arrived in the Lake District directly from the concentration camps. To say that I was astonished would be an understatement. Talking to these Jewish children many years later, and to more and more local people, I began to compile recollections, often handed down from parents and grandparents, that painted a picture of both human compassion and also the ability of people to recover from even the most horrendous experiences. These memories became the basis for the Lake District Holocaust Project, established in 2013. When Tom Palmer approached me to ask if he could write a book about the Jewish children and their stay in the Lake District, I was immediately taken by his desire to totally immerse himself in the story. We worked with him on this extraordinary book project, and he was always full of the same compassion as those who helped the children in their early days of recovery. He was also utterly dedicated to doing the story justice, and I am sure you will hear that he has. It is a story from the past, told in the present, with lessons for us all for the future. Trevor Avery, BEM, Lake District Holocaust Project. 1. Even though he was afraid, Yossi forced himself to crawl to the window in the side of the aeroplane. There were no seats, so he had to crouch and stay on all fours as he and the other passengers were thrown about by the turbulence. Outside, he could see a wall of white and a wing wobbling so hard it looked like it might fall off. Behind him, Yossi heard children cry out, the sound of at least one person being sick, and some laughter too.
"Come and sit down here, Yossi,"
a woman's voice called out. Yossi did as he was told, scrambling along the floor of the Sterling bomber to rejoin the other children and adults sitting on blankets. Yossi loved aeroplanes. He should have been scared of them, as the first time he'd seen one, 6 years ago at the beginning of the war, a German bomber had tried to destroy his hometown in Poland. Then, over the following years, he'd seen bombs falling from British and American aeroplanes, targeting the factories where he was forced to work. But he still loved them, perhaps because aeroplanes were a sign that change was coming. And once he was in the concentration camps, Yossi was desperate for change. He was also fascinated by these powerful machines. How could a huge piece of metal, with all these people on board, take off and then land without breaking into pieces? He glanced at the faces of the two boys closest to him. Didn't it worry them? The boys in question were called Mordecai and Leo. Both of them were 15 years old, like Yossi, and both seemed to be focusing so hard on what they were doing that they were barely aware of bouncing around in the clouds. Mordecai, short with dark hair, was reading an English book. Yossi admired him so much because he could hold a
Sample complete.
Ready to continue?